Hello, it's Rudy Giuliani. Welcome to Rudy's Common Sense. And as you can see, I'm on location, and I think you know who that gentleman is to my right. That's Commissioner Bernard Kerik. He was New York City Commissioner of Corrections before he was New York City Police Commissioner. He was Police Commissioner during a tumultuous time of crime, which, he took over after we had some pretty substantial crime reductions at a point where the belief was we couldn't go down any further. And he took it down much further. And in corrections, I don't know, he did miracles, 90% reduction in violence. They could sure use them now, couldn't they? Well, that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to use them now because I can't think of anybody else who could quickly analyze the crime epidemic that we have, which in this particular case, it has a few little peculiarities here and there, but it's pretty much everywhere in the country where there's a big city and maybe other places. So Bernie, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
And you agree that this is a crime epidemic unlike anything we've ever seen before in terms of so many different cities involved at the same time?
Well, I don't think we've ever seen it like this, where it's systematic in every one of these major Democrat-run cities, whether it's in New York City, the major cities in New York State, upstate, Seattle, Portland, Atlanta, Baltimore, Minneapolis, every one of the cities run by Democrats. We've seen substantial increases in violent crime, shootings, and murder. And, it's ironic that a lot of these mayors, they either intentionally are not doing anything about it, or they don't know what to do. And for us, for me, for you, and people like us that have lived through this, it's kind of weird to watch this because we know better.
It's frustrating. You have to wake up, whether it's the tremendous increase in murder last year, 16, 17 cities set a record, most murders in their history.
Right.
Or now the massive increase in property crime. New York City at one point on the CompStat was up 100% in auto theft.
Yep. Well, listen, auto theft and carjackings were pretty much eliminated across the board.
By the time you were
by the time I was police commissioner, in the aftermath of us leaving the city, nobody ever heard of carjacking
anymore, right?
With the exception of maybe Newark,
right,
where Joe works. But at the end of the day, carjackings were gone. Today, there's major carjacking teams all over these major cities. Like, it's nuts. And it's, you got to ask yourself, why aren't they addressing it? I think the problem, it's a 4-pronged problem. I always say 3, but it's 4 prongs. Okay. And the first prong comes out of the White House. The White House and this administration under Joe Biden emboldens the bad guys, right? They've supported BLM. They've supported Antifa. They've ignored, $1 billion worth of damage that they did in 2020. That you had the vice president of the United States was supporting getting Antifa and Black Lives Matter people out of jail after they committed violent assaults and all this other stuff. So you have them emboldening the bad guys. You have governors like Governor Cuomo and the present governor of New York that support these bail reform laws. That in New York, for example, 83% of the people locked up on gun charges, illegal gun charges, are immediately released back into the communities. 83%. And that comes from the PC's office in New York. So any kind of bail reform that does that lets bad guys back on the street, that doesn't hold them accountable, that prevents judges from looking at their pedigree, their prior arrest before they make a bail judgment. Mm-hmm. Anything that does that is horrible for society. So you've got the governors, you've got the district attorneys, many of them, funded by George Soros and groups like his, where they're not prosecuting the bad guys that do bad things. And then the last thing is the mayors that they've defunded their departments, their police departments. They don't support and endorse their own cops. They don't indemnify them. They've taken away immunity in many cases. And you have, listen, this defunding issue, take New York City, and we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, tell them, give people, because New York is so much, national news also, and I'm sure it's a microcosm in other places. But tell them the difference between when you left, take out the September 11 oddity, which they don't have to deal with, but basically right before you left, right before September 11th, the resources you had to use, and how it compares to recent times.
So when we left office, December 31st, 2001, I had 55,000 people under my command. 41,000 were uniformed officers, 14,000 were civilians. I had a $3.5 billion budget. Today, the NYPD has almost a $6 billion budget. De Blasio took a bunch of that money away and put it into social programs. But what's concerning to me, it's 21 years later, 21 years.
And almost twice as much money.
Almost twice as much money. And they have 6,000 to 7,000 less staff than I had in 2001.
So what were their cops numbers? I always hear are around 34,000.
35,000, right?
And so then
I had 41.
Now the balance is the balance would then be civilians, right?
Right. The balance would be civilians. But here's the problem.
And they have twice as much money, but you
have a substantial increase in the population in New York City over the last 20 years. You've got the illegals in New York City over the last several years.
Number. Could be double the number.
Could be double the number that was there prior. And you have all of the terrorism, the counterterrorism issues that we didn't have to deal with prior to 9/11. Guess what? Why is there less cops today than there was in 2001? If Eric Adams was serious about addressing crime, one of the first things he would do, go to the governor and get the bail reform thing repealed. Go to the governor and tell him get rid of the DAs in New York City that's not prosecuting the bad guys and doing what they're supposed to do, what they're sworn to do by law. And then take the money, and you've done this, take the money from social programs and other city programs, put that money into the police department, get the numbers where they should be, listen to the chief of department, listen to the first deputy commissioner, the police commissioner, give them what they want. And I'm going to tell, for the viewers out there, this is, the reason I say this is because of this. When I ran Rikers Island.
Before, again, just to explain it, before Bernie was police commissioner, he was commissioner of corrections, which meant he ran the largest corrections department in the United States. And at the time you came in, because originally you started as a deputy, right?
Right.
But from the time you came in, you had quite a career there. From the time you came in until the day you left to become police commissioner, you went without any doubt from being the most dangerous correction system in the country, which it may be today, I don't know, to being without any doubt the safest. And the reason everybody can believe it is 60 Minutes reported. Right?
60 Minutes and the New York Times.
And the New York Times.
And
they may not be there anymore. We may not find it there anymore.
Top of the fold.
After you became a Trump supporter.
But I'm going to tell you something. It's funny you mentioned 60 Minutes because I didn't.
And they came in to rip you apart.
Right. Well, I'm going to tell you this story. So, New York Times ran a front page story, top of the fold. An iron hand at Rikers dramatically reduces violence. That was the article.
Gee, I wonder how that was.
And it was 2.5 pages in the Times.
It works better than when they want.
Listen, I did what I was supposed to do. But Mike Wallace called me. And I didn't know him.
Father of Chris Wallace.
Mike Wallace called me, and I answered the phone, and he says, "Commissioner, I'm looking at this article here in the New York Times." And he goes just like this. He says, "Personally, I did a story on Rikers back in the 90s. He said, I'm reading this article. He said, I got to be honest, I think you're full of shit." and I was like, it is what it is. The numbers are what they are. And he said, I want to come and see.
You're talking to me about it. Think your homeowner's insurance covers home title fraud? Think again. And neither does your common identity theft program. The FBI calls home title fraud one of the fastest growing crimes, which is why you need to go to HomeTitleLock.com, America's leader in home title protection. Here's the problem. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. And the deeds to all of our homes now are online. In minutes, a criminal can find and forge your name off the deed to your home and refile as the new owner. Like Jeff, who spent a fortune in legal fees after a thief forged himself onto the deed to Jeff's home and took out loans. Jeff didn't have home title lock then. He does now. Or Deborah, who thought our common identity theft service would protect her. Then a criminal got onto the deed to a home and had her evicted. Deborah has home title lock now. HomeTitleLock.com is your peace of mind, and the deed to your home is protected. Visit HomeTitleLock.com. HomeTitleLock.com. So I remember you were asking me, should I do the interview with them? And you told me that, the numbers can't be, you can't lie about it. We're going to surprise them. I said, yeah, but they'll change the numbers.
They're going to destroy you.
But you did it.
I did it. And what he did is he took all of the footage from 1990.
Right.
And he compared it to the investigation they were doing then. And he basically came away with, this is the man that tamed Rikers Island.
Yeah. Sometimes I get numbers too low, too high in the length of time. I seem to recall the violent number. I mean, all the numbers were like in the 75 to 94% region, but the general violence was down 90%.
93%. We dropped the slashings.
Well, that was.
But listen, here's the other thing. Today they have 4,000 prisoners at Rikers.
And they have,
I had 133,000 admissions per year, and my daily population was 22,000.
They have 4,000.
Today they have 4,000, and they've got corruption, they've got stabbings, they've got jump pitch.
24,000,
and I had 22.
So almost at 6 times.
22. So we had a 93% reduction in violence, the slashing, stabbings. We had a 50% reduction in overtime spending. We had a 40% reduction in assaults on staff. And we had a 60% increase.
It was 5 times more criminals.
In searches found.
And by the way.
In searches and weapons found.
Yeah, and you were holding a lot more people. I mean, a lot more dangerous people were hanging around there. Now, 2/3 go out in the street.
Right.
That's the reason.
Which is why when I watch this stuff today and people say, well, it can't be fixed. It's too corrupt. They told me
that in 89.
It's exactly what the New York Times said about you when you came in and said, look, nobody wants to live, visit, work, or go to school in a place where they're not safe. So we're going to clean up New York City. And everybody laughed. Everybody said it could be done. But at the end of the day, here's the bottom line. For every percentage point, we reduced violence and violent crime and murder in New York City. We saw substantial increases in economic development, tourism, real estate values, decreases in the welfare rolls, a better quality of life all over New York City. So don't tell me that it can't be done, because then we had 5 times the amount of crime going on in New York City than they do today. And they're having a hard time today.
Yeah, and it's going up. What they have, however, for each of the last 3 years, they have crime increases that are historic and epic. There was 1 year in which shootings went up 100%.
Right.
I mean, that's unheard of.
Right.
I went back over the crime statistics in New York City, which are only about 60 years old, so you can't go way back. So de Blasio had the highest increase in homicide of any mayor in history.
Right.
50%.
Yep.
The homicides built up over a period of years when they got to 2,000 under Dinkins. But that to get to 2,000, it was a 10% increase.
But Mayor, when you took over, the year before you took over, we were at 2,200 murders.
Right.
We had more murders in New York City than they have today in LA, Atlanta, and Chicago.
And they're all falling apart.
and they're falling apart. These cities can't handle it.
So I have to get even for a political lie that's told all the time. The New York Times always says, well, the reduction started under Dinkins. Well, the city council required Dinkins to go hire more cops against his will, which he did. Crime went down briefly for 1 year. But the year before I came into office, it went up.
Right.
So when I took over from, particularly murder, when I took over from him, it was a rising crime rate.
Right.
And unlike Adams, where crime went up, 40% now, the first quarter, we had murder down 20% and rising crime down 12% immediately.
Right.
And there were times, for example, when your predecessors left, when Bill Bratton left, they did an article, you can't bring crime down any more than this. Yeah. Now, Howard Safely leaves, and I picked Bernie Kerik. And in a way, it was like they were being sympathetic with you. Why is Giuliani doing this?
Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Let me clear it up though. It wasn't only them. It was the mayor himself said, look, just drop it 2%. Don't let it go up. Everybody's going to say it's going to go up. Don't let it go up. Just whatever, 2%, 3%. By the end of the next year, before 9/11, I had reduced violent crime in the city by close to 15%. It was the most substantial increase.
That got us to our like 65%.
Right.
But the point that I'm making is when you took over, it was already down 50%.
Right.
It was already cut in half.
That's exactly
so,
right.
As you and I know, Bernie and I should tell you, have done this in foreign countries.
Yep.
Where it worked. We got fired in Mexico because we were effective.
Right. We
got in the middle of a political squabble. We had crime down 2 years in a row. Well, 1 year in the beginning of the second year. They were afraid the police commissioner, who may have been the only legitimate guy in the country,
the
police commissioner,
who wound up becoming a mayor later.
Yeah, was going to be the mayor, so the president fired him.
Right.
And then crime started to go up again. And he did become the mayor. I think he's now maybe the Secretary of State of Mexico. And the mayor we worked with was a raving communist, the president of...
Who became the president.
But on crime, you couldn't have had more support.
Yeah.
Right. And he wasn't like de Blasio Adams.
No. He was a
Boudin kid.
He was a raving left-wing lunatic, but he wanted crime reduced.
Yeah. Everybody should have the same amount of money. Big companies should be regulated. All the stuff, all communism, like the Democratic Party is today. However, no crime.
Yeah.
No crime.
There's a good example. He was a left-wing lunatic like all the left-wing lunatics here. But this was Mexico, and he wanted reductions in crime. Yeah. Here, they don't give a damn.
So fast forward history, and people are so surprised. How did Mexico agree with Donald Trump to hold the people in Mexico, the Remain in Mexico policy, which brought the border crime down like 30-40%? Yeah. Not like now, which the border is probably worse than New York was back then. Same guy.
Yeah.
The guy became the president of Mexico. He's a big, crazy left-winger. They say he and Trump are not going to get along. The only conversations they ever talked about were crime. And you thought you were talking to two hard-headed right-wingers. Maybe he was harder-headed than Trump.
Yeah.
Because he took in the Remain in Mexico policy. He dealt with the drug dealers on the border.
Yeah.
He didn't ask. They always asked for money for that. All he asked for was logistics support.
Yeah.
President Donald Trump would tell you that this crazy communist, whatever I shouldn't call that, he's a communist, was probably the most cooperative president that he dealt with, and certainly the most cooperative on crime.
And it was good for us.
Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code Rudy for these great specials. That's MyPillow.com and use the promo code Rudy. And what does Biden do? He reverses. He goes more left than the communist mayor of Mexico.
Yeah, but you know what, Mayor?
He reverses the Remain in Mexico.
But think about it for a minute. Joe Biden has done what every Democrat has done in this country. For some reason, when the Republicans come in and they fix stuff, the Democrats come in, no matter how good it is, no matter how good it got, no matter how great it works, the Democrats come in and they completely tear it apart. It's an intentional.
Nothing like this. This is unprecedented.
Yeah, well, we've never seen it like this. Never.
So let's go over the four things before we go. So any police commissioner who wants can follow this, and any one of them can call this guy and get advice. It's totally crazy that Adams, who I think holds the record for the largest increase in crime in his first 3 months in office. I don't think anybody's ever been close to the 34.
And you know what? I got to tell you, Mayor.
I know him.
I know. Listen, he was a lieutenant. He worked for us. Eric Adams had a better chance to become an icon of New York City, being a black mayor, coming in with crime on the rise after de Blasio. He could have, in 3 months, he could have knocked it through the floor. And I told him, I said, you can be an international rock star if you do what you have to do. And the crazy thing is, he knows how to do it. He knows what we did. He worked for us.
And he starts it, but then he doesn't finish it. Like, for example,
it's all theater, right?
But he begins with, I'm going to reconstitute the anti-crime unit,
right? Which
was ultimately our real secret to getting the guns, right?
Right.
Okay, and everybody knows that.
All plain clothes.
And the key to that is being in plain clothes, being part of the neighborhood. Nobody knows who you are.
You're a chameleon. You can get into the neighborhoods.
They're undercover.
Knows who you are.
They're
right.
almost like undercover police officers.
They are.
Right.
Right.
He said he adopts it right away. So, not so bad.
Then he puts them in uniform.
But now they're not. Doesn't he get they're not plain clothes when it says New York City Police right across here?
Yeah, I don't know what the
thinking. I don't know why I'm laughing.
I don't know whose bright idea that was. It takes away the effect, the impact.
The first month, Bernie, the first month, they're all bragging. We got 25 guns. How many? You got 25 guns in an hour.
Yeah, 20. We used to do 25, 30 a day. It's just
the first.
Yeah.
So now they're giving out tickets.
Well, that's really going to reduce crime.
I mean, the traffic unit gives out too. We got a separate they're not armed, I don't think, but we have separate traffic agents.
But you know what? It's just a bunch of stuff that they're doing. You're attacking the cops because he saw a cop on his phone looking at his cell phone. I don't think the mayor understands that probably the majority of the reports that the cops have to use, they're in their phone somewhere. A bunch of the radio networks are in their phone. There's a bunch of stuff that they can do in their phone while they're in the field, and we want them to do that. So to go around and then instead of calling the chief and saying what's up with these guys being on the phone, what does he do? He holds a press conference and tells the public, if you see a cop on the phone, take a photo and send it to me. Oh, come on, what are you, a tough guy? It demoralizes the cops.
So crime's going up, right? 3 weeks into it, he says, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to establish my plan. So for the first 3 weeks, we get open city, no new plan. We get people stabbed in the subways. Subways are absurd. Subways, 68% increase in crime. Nobody takes it. The guy goes to galas, parties, clubs every night.
He's definitely in it for the nightlife.
I
don't know
when does he have time to do crime
I don't know.
planning?
All I know is when I became police commissioner, I got yelled at for going to one night thing.
My problem with Ratty. Every time I called him, he was at Elaine's, and half the time.
And it was Tony Corbett. Your chief of staff got me in trouble. took me to some night
He
thing.
might have gotten Brandon in trouble. Who knows? But I would sometimes, God forbid, a cop was shot. I would always have to go, and I'd reach Bratton, and he's at Elaine's. The third time, I said, "You can't be a police commissioner and be at Elaine's. I don't want to be nasty, but it isn't because I'm against bars or restaurants. My father owned a bar. This we doesn't it drive you nuts that people are dying, and that if you could just do a little bit more, fewer people will die. I remember when we had the first bad shooting, a terrorist shooting. I told Bratton we're going to solve it in 24 hours. And we're going to solve it in 24 hours because that's how we stop the city from getting, when one of those things happen and the terrorist is out there, everybody in the city's nervous until you catch him. You can reverse it if you do. And we put his picture out everywhere. We went on every television station. We caught him in 12, 13 hours. But I don't see that spirit anymore. And many times with you, you had I would call you up and you had already done it. I can distinctly recall my usual pestering that I used to do. I call this guy up, and I was friendly with him. I was friendly with Howard Safer too, but I just about friendly with anybody else. And I would call him up, and he'd say, "Boss, we already got the guy. I just got the report." He said, "Could you wait yourself?" So I get a chance to call you. I mean, but it was so great. He also used to make his own arrests. He used to make his own arrests.
7. I know I got the record.
But what the heck happens to the morale of the police when you do? As opposed to saying, I'm going to look at I'm going to go check on your phone. I'm going to go take a look at your phone. Give me that phone. Give me that phone. I'm going to get that phone. You went out and made arrests. And they said, man, he's a cop like us. This guy's a cop like us. He might even get a civilian. I'm surprised he didn't get a civilian complaint.
I think it did. But that one was handled.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to look in the camera. Forget I'm here. You're talking to all the police commissioners and mayors, the ones that aren't bought by Soros, which unfortunately includes our city with the DA. Tell them the 4 changes that they could make right away. And then if they want, call you and you'll give them the other 20.
I think the big thing is ignore the Department of Justice, ignore the president, ignore the politics coming out of Washington. Focus on your city, number 1. Number 2, get your governors on board. The governors have to be on board. Stop the bail reform issues. Make sure the governors are putting money into the budgets, the state budgets. They're going to help those local departments where they can. Get the governors to go after the DAs. If the DAs are elected and they're in your jurisdiction and they're these Marxist left-wing radical lunatics that are going to allow people, to go out and do things and not hold them accountable, not prosecute them, they got to go. Can't keep them there because they're destroying your department and they're endangering your cops, the men and women that work for you. And lastly, the mayors. The mayors have to do the job they're sworn to do. Stop cowering to the left. That's Eric Adams' biggest problem. He's cowering to the left. If he put the money into the department, the men and women in the NYPD, they know how to reduce crime. They know how to reduce crime. They do it better than any department in the entire world.
Absolutely.
Right? We've trained people all over the world to do this. The bottom line is they know how to do it. Give them the money they need to do it. Give them the support they need. Indemnify them. And always give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's the one thing I could say about Mayor Giuliani. We had shootings, we had negativity, we had bad things happen. But the cops always got the benefit of the doubt until there was an investigation where there was proved otherwise that they were wrong. And then they're held accountable internally or they're locked up. We lock them up, and we've done plenty. But the bottom line is this can be fixed. And it's not a big nut to fix. It can be done.
Well, if I were a police commissioner, I'd say to myself the following. No police commissioner anywhere other than in New York reduced crime anywhere near the way he did. And he did the most of the 3 great ones that I had. And Commissioner Kelly, who came after him, who was a great police commissioner. And also, I respect his reductions, even though percentage-wise they were less than ours. Because he had the same problem you had.
You don't talk about this, and nobody really does. Keep in mind, Ray Kelly worked for David Dinkins. And Ray Kelly was not reducing crime. There were no reductions like there were under Giuliani. Ray Kelly was there, wasn't reducing crime wasn't dropping. Then Giuliani came in. We put in the programs to do what had to be done to change the dynamics and reduce crime, and it dropped. Then Ray Kelly worked for Bloomberg. And Bloomberg let him do his job.
100%.
Bloomberg gave him the money to do the job.
That's really important for the man.
So the importance that what I'm trying to say here is the PCs can go, the police commissioners go out there and do what they have to do. They know the job. The cops know the job. But you have to have a mayor that will give them the money, do what has to be done, indemnify them, support them, get them the resources they need. They'll get the job done. And I think that's where we see a distinct difference. David Dinkins, Kelly couldn't get it done. Under Bloomberg, Kelly got it done in a major, major way and remained that way for 12 years.
Well,
so that demonstrates the leadership out of the mayor's office is extremely important.
So this is doable if you have the right people. It's as
That's
simple as that. And you have the right approach. And I would say this is as clearly a Democrat crime pandemic as you've ever had, because it comes right out of their policies. And it can be fixed, I don't say quickly, but a lot quicker than people think by just changing the law.
Quick.
Well,
I'd say
Bernie,
quick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody that needs help, he's done it elsewhere, by the way. We could go through that another time. And he could tell you how you take these and apply them to South American and countries all over the world and make it work, as long as they're willing to, follow the rules. Well, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.